It's a strange thing, isn't it? To sit here, talking about something so deeply personal, something that felt like a dark secret for so long. For years, I didn't even realize the extent of the problem, let alone that it had a name. I just felt it, this constant drain, this gnawing emptiness inside. I accepted it as normal, as just part of being a functioning adult in this world. I thought everyone lived this way, perpetually available, always ready to respond, to fix, to please. But the truth, the raw, unsettling truth, is that I was utterly exhausted, drained, and the most terrifying part was that I didn't know why. I couldn't pinpoint the source of this profound fatigue that wasn't just physical, but seeped into every fiber of my soul. I was the person everyone loved to have around, the good listener, the always there for you, the one who never said no. And I wore those labels like badges of honor, you know? They were my identity, what made me feel valuable, important. I genuinely believed that my worth was directly proportional to my usefulness to others. If someone needed me, I was there, no matter the time, the place, or what I was feeling. My own needs, they were always secondary, almost non-existent. I'd shove them deep down, ignore them, silence them, because the priority was always the other person. And that, my friend, that was slowly, silently, killing me from the inside out. I didn't know there was another way to live. I didn't know I had the right to protect my space, my energy, my peace. I didn't know that no was a complete sentence, a valid option. I lived as if it were an unspoken obligation, to always be accessible, always present, always ready for whatever came my way. And that obligation, for me, became my biggest prison. An invisible cage, meticulously built by my own hands, brick by brick, with every forced yes, with every smile that masked a tear, with every piece of myself I gave away without receiving anything in return. And the cruelest irony, I didn't even realize I was building this prison. I thought I was building bridges, forging connections, strengthening bonds, but in reality, I was constructing walls around my own soul, isolating myself from my true essence, from my own voice. I remember countless nights, phone clutched in my hand, replying to messages that could have easily waited until morning. They were texts from friends in crisis, emails from colleagues with urgent questions, calls from family members needing to vent. And I, with my sleep interrupted, my mind already weary, felt an almost uncontrollable compulsion to respond immediately. I couldn't leave anyone hanging, couldn't appear uninterested, couldn't fail to be the unwavering support they expected. My own precious hours of rest, my own well-being, were consistently sacrificed at the altar of availability. It was a peculiar kind of addiction, a craving to be needed, to be the fixer, the one who was always there. And with every ounce of myself I gave away, I felt a piece of me draining, like sand slipping through my fingers. And the fear of not being useful paralyzed me. The fear of being rejected, of being forgotten, of not being loved if I wasn't constantly present, always available, always smiling, even when inside I was in pieces. I would cancel my plans, my moments of peace, my reading, my exercise, because someone needed me. A friend would call, tears streaming, and I'd drop everything to rush to their side, even if I was utterly exhausted or had an important personal commitment. A colleague would ask for help on a project, and I'd take on the burden, even if my own plate was already overflowing. I'd say yes with my mouth, while my soul screamed no. It was a silent, internal scream, one only I could hear, and one I quickly muffled with the justification that it's the right thing to do. That's what a good person does. I convinced myself I was being altruistic, but deep down, it was a self-sacrifice that led me straight to burnout. I saw people using me, and that's the most painful admission of all. They'd only seek me out when they needed a shoulder, advice, a solution. I was their emotional emergency button. They'd press it when they craved attention, relief, validation. And then, I'd be forgotten, tucked back onto the shelf until the next crisis. I wasn't invited to the joyful moments, to the celebrations, to the mundane beauty of everyday life. I was merely the problem solver, the free therapist, the emotional crutch, and it gnawed at me. I felt invisible, utterly undervalued. My self-esteem was in tatters. I no longer knew who I was without being useful to others. It was as if I was abandoning myself, piece by painful piece, to maintain a peace that was never truly mine, but rather the peace of others at the devastating expense of my own. The psychological damage was profound. I lived in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, always anticipating the next demand, the next request, the next crisis of someone else. My body was tense, my mind perpetually racing. I developed a kind of silent resentment, a simmering anger towards those I felt were exploiting me, but which I couldn't express. This anger, unaddressed, turned inward, transforming into relentless self-criticism, into guilt for not being strong enough to handle everything. I felt like a fraud, an imposter, because on the outside I'd smile and say, "I'm fine," while inside I was in utter disarray. I couldn't stop. It was a compulsion, an addiction to being accepted, to not disappoint. I harbored a terrifying fear of being rejected, of being abandoned, of not being loved. I genuinely believed that if I wasn't constantly available, constantly pleasing, I would be forgotten, that people would simply drift away. It was a belief so deeply ingrained that I couldn't even begin to question it. I was trapped in a relentless cycle of self-sacrifice, where with each act of kindness, I diminished myself a little more, desperately hoping it would bring me the love and acceptance I so desperately craved. But what I received was more demand, more draining, more emptiness. And the cruelest part is, I didn't even realize I was building this prison. I thought I was building bridges, forging connections. But in reality, I was building impenetrable walls around my own soul, isolating myself from my true essence, from my own voice. I remember one particular instance. I was at a social gathering, and someone asked me for a favor that would consume hours of my time, a favor I genuinely did not want to do. My whole body screamed no, but my mouth, almost automatically, said yes, and I smiled. On the outside, the person thanked me effusively. On the inside, I felt a tight knot in my stomach, a silent rage consuming me. And I asked myself, why do I do this? Why can't I protect myself? It was as if I had no control over my own actions. I was a hostage to others' expectations, a slave to my own desperate need for approval. And this slavery, you who are watching, is the cruelest of all because it's invisible, and we convince ourselves it's freedom. I was so accustomed to being everyone's safe harbor that I completely forgot to be my own. And this profound neglect, this repeated self-betrayal, led me to a very dark place. Then came a day I hit my absolute limit. It wasn't just physical exhaustion anymore. It was a profound soul exhaustion, a fatigue that transcended the physical body, reaching the very core of my being. I felt hollow, utterly empty, as if all my essence had been siphoned away. There was no more joy, no passion, not even anger, just a pervasive numbness, a deep, unsettling apathy. It was as if the vibrant colors of the world had faded, and I was living in a muted, black and white film. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. It was a mere shell. My eyes were dull, my smile forced, my posture slumped. I saw a person who had completely lost herself, who had dissolved into the relentless needs and expectations of others. And a thought, clear and sharp, pierced through the fog. I can't live like this anymore. I need help. I need a way out. That phrase echoed in my mind like a desperate, urgent mantra. It was a silent scream, you who are watching, a cry for help that only I heard. No one around me perceived the terrifying depth of my despair. To them, I was still the strong one, the together one, the always available. And this facade, this meticulously crafted persona I had built, was so utterly convincing that even I, at times, started to believe in it. But at that moment, staring into that mirror, the raw, naked truth revealed itself. I was dying inside. I had tried everything before that, you know. Conventional therapy, meditation, exercise, diets. Nothing seemed to touch the root of the problem. I'd feel a little better for a while, but the exhaustion and resentment always returned. It was as if I was merely treating the symptoms, but never addressing the underlying disease. I was trapped in a relentless cycle of self-sacrifice and draining, and I simply couldn't find the key to liberate myself. That day was my rock bottom. There wasn't a dramatic event, a sudden argument, a devastating loss. It was the quiet, insidious accumulation of years of self-abandonment. The stark realization that I was living a life that wasn't truly mine, for people who perhaps didn't genuinely care about me, but rather about what I could provide. It was the searing pain of realizing that I had betrayed myself repeatedly in the desperate pursuit of an acceptance that never truly arrived. And it was in that profound emptiness, in that suffocating darkness, that a tiny, flickering flame of hope ignited. A weak but persistent inner voice whispered, "There has to be another way." And in that moment, I decided I would find it, no matter the cost. And it was in that rock bottom, you who are watching, that I found Carl Jung. It wasn't in an office, like this one, but in a book that quite literally fell into my hands by pure chance, or perhaps, as Jung himself might say, by synchronicity. And it was as if he were speaking directly to me, across time and space. Every single word was a mirror, reflecting my own hidden truths. Every concept was a key that unlocked a door within my mind, a door I didn't even know existed. He spoke about psychic energy, about how we spend our vital force reacting to everything, trying desperately to please, constantly justifying ourselves. And I realized, that was it. That was the core of my problem. I was draining my soul on things that offered no nourishment in return. I was carelessly throwing my energy away without even realizing it in interactions that left me emptier than before. Jung made me see that my excessive availability wasn't a virtue at all. It was a prison meticulously constructed with my own energy, with my own unwitting permission. Then I read this: "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That sentence, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. For so long, I had been trying to be who everyone else wanted me to be. I was a chameleon, adapting my colors to fit every environment, every expectation. But Jung's words, they were a profound invitation. An invitation to stop performing, to stop pleasing, and to start the arduous yet ultimately liberating journey of discovering my authentic self. It wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about uncovering the person I was always meant to be, buried under layers of conditioning and people-pleasing. He also spoke about the persona, that mask we wear to adapt to the world, to be accepted, to be loved. And I realized that my persona was precisely the always available person. I wore it so convincingly that it had completely merged with my identity. I no longer knew where the mask ended and where I truly began. And this mask, although it brought me some superficial acceptance, utterly prevented me from being who I truly was, from expressing my genuine needs and limits. I was so consumed with being what others wanted me to be that I completely forgot who I truly was. Jung introduced me to the profound concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a complete, authentic, unique being. And I understood that to even begin this process, I needed to stop dissolving myself into others' expectations. I needed to reclaim my energy, my very essence, which was being scattered in 1,000 different directions. He showed me that true strength isn't in being everything to everyone, but in being whole for oneself. That fulfillment doesn't come from external validation, but from within, from a deep process of self-knowledge and integration. It was a revelation, a blinding light at the end of a very long, dark tunnel. I wasn't crazy nor weak. I was just unconscious. And from that moment on, I made a fierce decision. It was time to bring to light everything that was hidden, everything that controlled me without my knowing. I decided it was time to stop being a convenient mirror for others' avoidance. I decided it was time to fight for my own soul. I decided to stop looking outside for answers and start looking within. And that decision, you who are watching, was the very first step towards my true freedom. It wasn't easy, you who are watching. Far from it. It was, without a doubt, one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I felt like an addict in recovery, battling a deeply ingrained compulsion that had been with me for years. I started with small, almost imperceptible things to others, but which felt monumental to me. taking longer to reply to a message, putting my phone down for a few hours, saying no to an invitation I genuinely did not want to accept, even if guilt gnawed at me from the inside. Every no was a small victory, but also an intense internal battle. I learned to observe my automatic reactions instead of just reacting. When the phone rang, I didn't answer immediately. I breathed. I asked myself, do I want to answer now? Can I answer now? And many times the answer was no. And I let it ring. And the world didn't end. No one died. But the initial anxiety was enormous. I felt as if I was disobeying a universal law, as if I was betraying someone's trust. Guilt was a relentless monster that haunted me with every no I uttered. And then came the external resistance. Oh, that was cruel. People got irritated. They called me selfish, cold, changed. You're not the same anymore, they'd say, with an accusatory tone. You're strange. You've pulled away. I'd hear that and feel a sharp pang in my heart, an immense urge to revert to being the old me, the pleasant me. But I remembered Jung's words. He taught me about projection. And I saw their irritation wasn't about me at all. It was about the fact that I was no longer serving the role they imposed on me. I was no longer the convenient mirror for their shadows. They projected onto me the desperate need to have someone always available. And when I broke that projection, they felt profoundly threatened. I realized that many didn't want me, but rather what I offered: validation, attention, energy. When I stopped offering that for free, they pulled away. And that was the most painful part of psychological discipline. It was like a mourning, a deep, personal mourning for relationships I had genuinely thought were true, but which turned out to be conditional. The internal struggle was constant. I felt guilt, a terrifying fear of being alone, of being misunderstood. I questioned myself relentlessly. Am I really being selfish? Am I losing important people? But Jung's voice echoed. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And I decided that the price of authenticity was absolutely worth it, that the peace I so desperately sought would only come if I stopped betraying myself. Psychological discipline became a daily practice. It's not about being indifferent. It's about being selective with your soul. It's about learning to say no without guilt, to remain silent when provocation arises, to withdraw from discussions that lead nowhere. It's about protecting your energy as the most precious asset you possess. I started to identify my triggers, the situations and people that made me react automatically, and I started to consciously create a space between the stimulus and my response. That space, you who are watching, is where freedom resides. It's where consciousness comes into play. I learned that silence can be the most powerful response. Not the silence of cowardice, but the silence of sovereignty. When you don't react, you effectively unbalance the manipulator. You force them to deal with their own emptiness, with their own shadow, and that's incredibly uncomfortable for them. But it's profoundly liberating for you. It was a process of deconstructing years of conditioning, of deeply ingrained limiting beliefs. And with each step, I felt that I was reconnecting with my true essence, with my own voice, which had been silenced for so long. I remember a specific situation. A person who always drained me with endless dramas called me. Before, I would have spent hours on the phone, trying to solve their problems, feeling utterly exhausted afterward. This time, I listened for a few minutes, and then calmly I said, "Look, I understand you're going through a tough time, but I can't help you with this right now. I need to take care of my energy." And I hung up. My heart was pounding. Guilt tried to creep in, but I took a deep, steady breath, and I realized the world didn't fall apart. The person didn't hate me, and I felt light. It was a victory, a small but incredibly significant victory in my journey of self-discovery and protection. This soul therapy was painful, but every single step was worth it. Today, you who are watching, I have peace, a peace I never imagined having. It's not a passive peace of someone who has simply resigned themselves. It's an active, hard-won peace that radiates from within. My energy has returned. I feel whole. I feel me. It's as if I've finally come home to my own body, to my own soul. It's a feeling of completeness I had never experienced before. My relationships are more authentic because now I attract those who value who I truly am, not just what I can offer. I lost some people, yes. Those who only wanted my availability, my energy, my role as a problem solver. But the ones who stayed, oh, those are the ones who truly see me. They are the ones who love me for who I am, with my limits, with my needs. And these relationships are infinitely richer and truer. They nourish me instead of draining me. I am no longer a puppet. I am the master of my own life. I choose where my energy goes, who I connect with, what I absorb. Silence has become my greatest power. Absence has become a form of presence, of making myself valuable. Solitude, which once terrified me, has become a sacred space for self-connection, for recharging, for listening to my own inner voice. It is in silence that I find myself, that I strengthen myself, that I reconnect with my essence. I learned that conscious unavailability isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about being selective with your soul. It's about saying no without guilt, withdrawing when needed. It's not coldness. It's self-protection. It's self-love. It's a way of honoring yourself, of putting yourself first, not selfishly, but wisely. It's understanding that to truly love others, you first need to love and respect yourself. I still have my challenges, of course. Life isn't a fairy tale. But now, I have the tools. I have the awareness. I have Jung, and I have myself. I know how to identify patterns, manipulations, energy drains, and I know how to protect myself. I no longer react automatically. I choose. And that choice, you who are watching, is my greatest freedom. It's as if I've undergone major soul surgery. Painful, yes, but absolutely necessary. And now, the wound is healing, and in place of the pain, there's a strength I never knew I possessed. A strength that comes from within, from my own essence, and that doesn't depend on external validation. It's the strength of being who I truly am, without masks, without fears, without the desperate need to please at all costs. And that is the greatest healing I could have received. I feel more authentic, truer, more aligned with my purpose. And that feeling, you who are watching, is priceless. If you who are listening now have ever felt like I did, exhausted, used, not knowing who you are, know that you are not alone. And more importantly, know that there is a way out. It's not an easy path, I won't lie. It's a journey of courage, of self-confrontation, of discipline, but freedom, the freedom to be yourself, to protect your energy, to choose your peace, is priceless. I'm not perfect. I still have my struggles, my moments of doubt. But now I have the tools. I have the awareness. I have Jung, and I have myself. I learned that true strength isn't in being everything to everyone, but in being whole for oneself. Your energy is your most precious asset. It is your vital force. And if you don't learn to protect it, someone will use it against you. Someone will drain it, without you realizing it, until nothing is left. Don't allow that. Don't abandon yourself. Remember what Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This quote, for me, became the guiding star. It shifted my focus from trying to be what others wanted, to discovering and embracing my authentic self. It's a journey of shedding layers, of confronting uncomfortable truths, but the reward is an unparalleled sense of peace and wholeness. It's the ultimate act of self-love. Don't be afraid to be misunderstood. Don't be afraid to be called selfish. Those who truly care about you, those who truly love you, will understand. And those who don't understand, well, perhaps they never truly cared about you, but rather about what you could offer. And that is a painful truth, but necessary for your liberation. Your journey of individuation, of becoming who you truly are, begins the moment you decide that your peace is worth more than anyone's approval. It begins when you decide that you will no longer be an emotional puppet, but the master of your own soul. It's a solitary path sometimes, but it's the path to true freedom and fulfillment. I want to ask you, you who are there on the other side of the screen, are you ready to pay the price of your freedom? To be misunderstood, rejected, or even hated by some, but finally be yourself? Are you willing to face the pain of your own shadow and the shadows of others to find your true light? If this confession touched you, if it made sense, if you saw yourself in any part of my story, I invite you to take the first step. Leave an "I choose my peace" in the comments. It's a commitment to yourself. It's the beginning of your own journey of liberation. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to continue this conversation about how to protect your energy, set boundaries, and reconnect with your essence, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next videos. Because this journey is just the beginning. And I'll be here to share more about what I've learned. Remember, your peace is non-negotiable. Your energy is sacred, and you deserve to be whole. You deserve to be free. I chose my peace. And you?